Good morning. My name is Lee Knox. Thank you for inviting me to speak today about a very important new beginning in my life. I used to be a drunk. Now I'm not. Let me tell you how it happened. I was raised by the quintessential suburban parents of the 1950s and 60s. Dad had a corporate office job. Mom was a housewife. There were four of us kids. There was no violence, alcoholism, drug addiction, poverty, or any other family hardship that might lead one to alcohol abuse. In high school, I started taking drugs, out of boredom, I suppose, mostly LSD, because it was cheap and easy to come by at my school. I drank alcohol once in a while when my friends and I could find someone over 21 years old to buy it for us. This was in Dallas, Texas. Then my family moved to Kansas City, and I went off to the University of Kansas, where alcohol was cheap and more easily obtainable than drugs. You only had to be 18 to drink beer in Kansas. I was only 16, as I had skipped a grade in high school, but the bars near the campus assumed that if you were a student there at the university, then you must be at least 18. I loved to hang out in the bars and drink beer. I learned to play pool and got quite good at it. We played for beer. As long as I kept winning, I could drink beer and play pool until the bar closed. I used to go into a bar with 5 quarters, a quarter for a glass of beer, 2 quarters for a pack of cigarettes, 1 quarter for the pool table, and the last quarter to buy a beer for the person who beat me at pool. If I lost the game, I would be out of quarters and I had to go home. I did this many nights a week. After college, I went to work in Kansas City and continued going to bars almost every night. It was the 1970s, and then into the 1980s. I drank more and more, always at bars or parties. I didn't drink at home alone. I mostly hung out at a neighborhood bar, the kind of place where everybody knows your name. The bar would sponsor trips to the racetrack and float trips to the Lake of the Ozarks. It was a lot of fun. I always held down a job, and at first I was working my way up with better and better jobs. Later on, as I drank more and more, I was more downwardly mobile. Then I fell in love. He was a Missouri farm boy named Bud. We worked together. He was married. Many nights after work, a whole group of us would go to a bar near the office to drink and play pool. The other guys would only stay for a while, and it would always end up with just me and Bud. We would drink more and talk more for hours. This went on for about 6 months. I didn't let him know that I had romantic feelings for him because he was married. And then one night, I told him. That's when we started our affair. I knew it was wrong. My parents had raised me better than that. I felt horrible about fooling around with a married man, and I kept planning to call it off. But as soon as Bud and I got together and we drank enough, it seemed okay because we were in love. After a while, he left his wife and moved in with me. After his divorce, we got married and were together for 10 years. We worked together and we drank together. We were best friends and drinking buddies. Then Bud and his work friends started a new company on the other side of the city. They worked long hours, after which they went to a bar nearby, or sometimes they stayed at work, brought in some booze and often some cocaine. Whatever they were doing, it didn't include me. I'd lost my drinking buddy, and we grew apart. After an ugly incident one night involving way too much alcohol and cocaine and a gun. I hate guns. I decided I had had enough of Bud. I moved out and told him I wanted a divorce. So now I was single again and still hanging out at the bars. I became famous among my friends for being able to date 2 guys simultaneously. As long as the men knew about each other, I figured it was okay. It wasn't until I stopped drinking that I realized that this might not have been fair to the men. One guy had gotten tired of it and told me, "It's either me or him." So I said, "Okay, him." That only lasted a few months, then he was calling me again. I had always been a happy drunk, until I wasn't. I knew I had a problem, but I wasn't sure what to do about it. It seemed to me that the problem wasn't alcohol. It was the frequency and quantity of alcohol. So I tried to control it. I'll only drink on weekends, I told myself. Well, Thursday's part of the weekend, isn't it? And of course, I played darts on Monday night, so I'd have to drink then. Or I told myself, I'll only have 3 drinks and then I'll go home. Yeah, right. As F. Scott Fitzgerald said, you take the first drink, that drink takes the second drink, and then the drinks take you. One night during a 6-day bender, I decided I couldn't imagine living without drinking, and I couldn't figure out how to stop drinking. So I decided to stop living. I was at the home of boyfriend du jour, and he had some Valium in his medicine cabinet. So I took the whole bottle. I was really surprised to wake up the next morning. I couldn't believe what I had done, but sure enough, the Valium bottle was empty. It scared me that I could have done something like that, so I started in drinking again. In the ensuing drunken stupor, I called an emergency number and told them what was going on. They sent an ambulance to take me to a hospital. After they checked that I hadn't done any damage to myself with all that Valium, the hospital staff sent a psychiatrist from the alcohol recovery unit to come and talk to me. He decided that I didn't drink because I was depressed, but rather that I was depressed because I was an alcoholic. So I was enrolled in their 30-day outpatient treatment, and I stayed with my parents at night. By the way, this whole thing hurt my parents a lot, that I had tried to kill myself and that I was suffering in this way. The treatment center counselor strongly recommended going to AA meetings. I was aware that those who attended AA had a much better chance of staying sober, but I was hesitant to go because I'm an atheist. People assured me that AA is not a religious program, it's a spiritual program. Oh, really? 8 out of the 12 steps mention God. That seems a little religious to me. Steps number 3 and 11 use the phrase, God as we understand him. Well, I understood God to be fictional, but I wasn't going to let that stand in the way because I wanted to stay sober. I went to the meetings and made friends there. Here was a place that I could hang out with people where no one was drinking. I paid little attention to the 12 steps, but learned a lot from people's stories. I learned to be honest with myself about my actions and my motives, both then and now. And we would do fun things together as a group. Did you know that you can go bowling without drinking? It was news to me. At first, I felt like it was just a matter of time before I would drink again, that something would happen that I would have to drink over. Little by little, that feeling went away. By 6 months into my sobriety, I knew that I would never have to drink again if I didn't want to, and I didn't want to. It was a new beginning for me. I got a new job. I got a new apartment out in the suburbs where there wasn't a bar or liquor store on every corner. As a matter of fact, my new apartment was just 2 blocks from a Unitarian church. I was aware of the UU church downtown. Even when I was a drunk, I had thought about checking out the UUs because they were frequently hosting interesting speakers there. But of course, in order to attend, I would have to get off the bar stool and leave the bar. So that never happened. But now that I was sober and this other UU fellowship was just 2 blocks away, I thought I'd go check it out. It was helpful that the sign said it was a Unitarian society, not a church. I was getting all the God talk I needed at the AA meetings. At this UU society, I was hoping to find new friends, people who were well educated and free thinking, and I did. I enjoyed being part of the community, and I made many friends there. And now sober, I was able to do many things. I could make plans and keep them because I knew I wouldn't be drunk or hungover. I attended the symphony, the opera, the ballet. I took vacations to South America and Europe. I joined the Peace Corps and lived in Transylvania for 2 years, after which I landed a job with Kansas City's PBS station. It felt good to work in the nonprofit sector. Even back when I was a drunk, I knew I lived a privileged life and should help out people who are less fortunate. I would hear about volunteer opportunities that were well within my ability and think, I should go do that. But back then, in order to do that, I would have to get off the bar stool and leave the bar. So I rarely did. Though one time, I signed Bud and I up to serve Thanksgiving dinner to the homeless at the Salvation Army. They made us show up very early in the morning, and we were very hungover. It was a miserable day, so we never did that again. After I stopped drinking, my sister and I spent every Thanksgiving and sometimes Christmas delivering Salvation Army meals to elderly shut-ins around Kansas City. And I did lots of other volunteer work. It's so much easier to help others when you're not drunk or hungover. Back when I was a drunk, I did not like to spend time around my parents. I couldn't drink the way I wanted to in their presence. And I felt like they disapproved of my lifestyle. I felt like they were disappointed in me. Once I sobered up, I realized that it was me who disapproved of my lifestyle, and it was me who was disappointed in me. Sober, I felt like my parents loved me and wanted what was best for me. And sober, I was able to take care of them years later when they both got dementia. We lost Dad in 2013 and Mom 2 years later, and I miss them every day. So that was my new beginning. I have been sober now for 27 years. I may have missed out on a lot during my drunken years, but I feel like I have made up for it since then. In my case, sobriety is the spice of life. Thank you for listening.